This is the culture.
Welcome back to Vinny Mini Reviews. Today we're going over Godzilla Minus One. This is a film that I've been very excited for. Just to preface, I am a huge Godzilla fan. Godzilla means a lot to me. I grew up with not only the Toho films, but the American films, even though they, in my opinion, are very flawed. Toho has always been my favorite, however. The original 1954 Gojira was a film that changed my life. I rented it from the library in probably second grade, and from there, I saw filmmaking through a whole different lens, and I believe that if it wasn't for the original Godzilla, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you guys. I would not be a filmmaker, and it essentially, like I mentioned, changed my life. Godzilla means a lot. I love Godzilla when he is a horrifying metaphor for the atomic bomb. I love Godzilla when he is a goofy, silly monster trying to help out, Earth and fight other monsters. Godzilla Minus One, however, we're returning back to this original idea. Godzilla is a terrifying, horrifying monster, and I was absolutely blown away by this film. I saw this at the early access fan event in a AMC Dolby Cinema, which was an incredible experience. We had a theater packed with nothing but Godzilla fans. People brought their Godzilla t-shirts. There was Godzilla toys. When the movie started, when the movie ended, people were clapping, and it was all around an amazing experience for Godzilla fans like I. Also, like I mentioned, the Dolby Cinema really added to it. It was just an incredible audio experience. And as we know, Godzilla's iconic roar was amplified in this viewing. Now, the film itself, like I mentioned, returning back to this original metaphor, this original idea, Godzilla is a horrifying monster, and I adored it. It was terrifying. You have some of the best scenes in the franchise, and I believe this is one of the best movies in the franchise. I believe the director and writer, Takshi Yamazaki, who also was a VFX supervisor on this film, which is very underrated because we are currently in a state of the cinema industry where you have these big budget films. I'm going to take Marvel for an example. And the directors, they show up to set, they direct their actors, and then they just kind of pass on the rest of the film to the VFX companies, not knowing how to integrate VFX in their production and pre-production. And they just pass it on to these VFX companies with a really tight deadline, and it leaves these VFX companies really stressed, and a lot of the time the work is unfinished and rushed, and it doesn't come out the way they imagine because they just believe that VFX can just fix everything. But with this, Yamazaki was writing the script with VFX in mind. He was producing and directing on production with the VFX in mind, and even in post-production, like I mentioned, VFX supervisor, he was working on the VFX himself. They accomplished this film with only $15 million budget. Now, $15 million to an average person, obviously a lot, but in movie making standards, this is incredible. It blows my mind that this entire film was made with only a $15 million budget. It is incredible. It is beautiful to look at. We're going into spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the film yet, I recommend you do. It is really good. But going into spoilers, the scene where Godzilla comes ashore and destroys Ginza Tokyo is probably my favorite Godzilla destruction scene in the entire franchise, which is saying a lot. I'm a huge Godzilla fan. The VFX are beautiful. The impact, the terrifying nature of Godzilla is just crazy. It is just so impactful. And not only they do amazing homages to the original. For example, the train scene. He bites the train, and we have Noriko just dangling from the pole in the train. And as a Godzilla fan, I'm like, I love to see that little homages, but also elevates that particular scene to another level. Incredibly well done. The atomic breath scene. I love Hideaki Anno, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, and he did the previous entry in the Toho franchise, that being Shin Godzilla, which is a film that I adore. However, I think this film tops Shin Godzilla just by a little bit. It's a very different, and it's almost hard to compare the two. But in Shin Godzilla, they have this epic atomic breath scene, which is iconic in its own right. But Minus One has a exploding atomic breath scene that when Godzilla, his scales are popping out of his back and it's glowing blue, and he lets his atomic breath out, and again at the end of the line explodes like an atom bomb, which obviously, like I mentioned, Godzilla is a metaphor for the fear and destruction that was caused in World War II, and the idea of the atom bomb, which adds to the filmmaking, and we just see the shockwave go through the city and then suck back up, and the destruction that is at play here is terrifyingly epic. Was really invested also in the humans. Oh my god, this is what excites me so much as a Godzilla fan, because not only do we have epic Godzilla moments, but this is like one of the first times in the franchise that I remember, that I call back to as I really care about the humans. This is rare to see in a monster film, rare to see in Godzilla. Koichi, who is the main character, is a kamikaze pilot who has abandoned his duty, which obviously in the setting right after World War II Japan, in which this film takes place in, is a very dishonorable act, and he gets a lot of he regrets it, and he has this terrible survivor's guilt around it. And I just thought he was so investing, and his relationship with Noriko and the daughter that they adopt, Akiko, is really loving and just had so much heart to it that I've never seen in a monster movie. And it also added to the Godzilla, because Godzilla is supposed to be a terrifying force of nature. When you see characters that you actually are loving be affected by this creature, you don't want to see these characters die now. It just adds to Godzilla's terrifying nature. Also, the pacing was very excellent. I love how they open the scene with this, Godzilla hasn't been hit with the atomic bomb yet. He is not radiated. He's kind of like this Jurassic Park-esque opening. They jump right into the action. They establish Koichi's character as well as another character in the film. But they establish his character and his dynamic right from the start, and they show Godzilla right from the start. Now, it felt like something straight out of Jurassic Park. It reminded me of the T-Rex scene from Jurassic Park, because we see this very small, like, dinosaur, like I said, pre-radiated Godzilla, but it was epic. It was awesome. And it was just a beautiful spectacle throughout, with a lot of hard-hitting, heartfelt moments. And although, albeit there are some cheesy moments that just breaks your suspension of disbelief, I don't care. I don't care, because honestly, I'm biased because I'm a big Godzilla fan, but it's granted for this franchise. You're gonna have a little bit of cheesy moments, and I think the rest of the film heavily outweighs that, and it does take off like maybe half a star from me, but it's not something too much to complain about. I think, like I said, granted for the franchise, and the rest of the film is so good, and you could tell that the director Yamazaki really cared for this property, and they did an excellent job. I just like thank you to the crew and all the actors involved. Um, Ryunosuke, which I believe is how you pronounce his last name, the actor who plays Koichi, is powerful. He has these PTSD breakdown scenes, and he carries the film on his shoulders. The emotional weight of the film. That has really been it. That's my thoughts for Godzilla Minus One. Loved it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Just epic, terrifying throughout, like I mentioned. One last moment, or one last element that I'd like to mention is how they use Godzilla's traditional score. And this also plays into the homages, like I mentioned. The homages to the original Godzilla and the franchise as a whole, like I said, really proves how Yamazaki is a fan and he's holding this film in his hands tightly, in a very he's carefully holding this franchise. And you could tell there was a lot of love and passion behind this. You have those homages where the original Godzilla score is playing, and as a Godzilla fan, I love that. That score is iconic. I literally listen to it at least once a week. So it was awesome. Awesome. Highly recommend Godzilla Minus One if you are a Godzilla fan, or even if you're not a Godzilla fan. I recommended it to my friends, and they came back to me with high regards, and they loved it as well. So check it out. I'm going to give Godzilla Minus One a 9 out of 10 for me. Absolutely loved it. All right, so that has been it for Vinny's mini reviews at the Cinema Wave Media. If you don't already follow us on at Cinema Wave on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Threads, as well as at Culture Wave Media, where you can find us on Instagram, I recommend you do so. We love the support. And remember to comment your thoughts on Godzilla Minus One if you've seen it down below. It is I, Vinny Albano, and I am signing off. I'll see you guys next time.